Oh wait, is Frank watching? Is that Frank Tufano? No.
No, no,
It
that's
looked
not.
like his like profile picture for a second. I was like, no
Yeah,
way. That's
it looks like Frankie's free range meats.
yeah. Come join our live.
Oh wait. Close the YouTube tab. There we go. And we're live. Yeah. Well, we've been live for like 15 seconds now.
Yeah,
Hi,
What's going
friend.
on, people? Yeah. Welcome to another episode of Buttercasts. We are your hosts. My name is Anderson.
I'm Jay.
Yeah, and we're brothers. We're joined today by No Reason to Be Vegan, NR2BV.
My name is Kelsey. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, we're really excited to have you.
our favorite anti-vegan or v-
Well,
vegan
thank you.
basher.
Yeah, we're huge fans of your work. We've been following your page for what is it now? Almost like 2 years now, I think. We've been
Yeah,
going back and forth for a while, so
we've
it's
been
great
following it
to
since the beginning. When did you
yeah
guys start? Oh,
End of 2020.
yeah end of 2020. But it really just started as like us posting meals. It was kind of like of our like carnivore. You know how those pages start? Like they just post like their plates.
yeah,
Like that was us. And then like a year later, we started like doing more like infographic content.
and then
Um,
blew up.
And that
yeah, and
blew
then
up.
it kind of became a thing, right? I assume that that's kind of how you got started with your journey, right? You just like figured
So I
might
didn't
as well
start
start.
posting. I wasn't posting any meal plans. Mine was more or less like I reached a point of like just a breaking point with frustration with all the vegan propaganda that's been coming out over the last decade plus. And this is something that I researched a long time ago. And I had all these bookmarks saved. I had all of this information that just was kind of like being kept to myself. And I thought, why don't I just start putting this out on Instagram? I'm sure there are people out there like me who fell for this, that suffered from a vegan diet, that don't really think they feel alone. They don't realize how many other people have been affected by this. And I just kind of started putting stuff out there. Like I just had hundreds of past articles and things that I wanted to share that really helped me in my understanding and my journey. So it didn't really take off, right away. I was at like $5,000 after my first year of posting, but I hadn't been doing it with a super consistent effort. And so about a year into it is when I was like, I was going to try to post every 3 days. And then that pretty quickly went to posting more like every day or as close to that as I could get. And then I really started to see more and more traction, more people resonating with the message that I was putting out there. And so I just decided I'll keep going as long as people want me to, I guess.
Yeah, you realize there was an audience for hearing the counter vegan talking points.
A much bigger audience than I really expected.
Yeah,
Yeah. And how did you decide on like your content style? Because you share a lot of resources, like you share lots of articles, lots of news, like lots of studies. And then I think recently you started like sharing more like video content, which has been great. Like you've shared some amazing clips, uh, touching across like very different sorts of topics. Because there's just so much to address when you're trying to tackle this narrative, right?
Yeah, there's so many different kind of subcategories within this topic. If you look at my highlights, like I've tried to kind of organize it into the subcategories so people can more easily find uh, the arguments that they're looking for, the information they're looking for. But I've got like 40 something highlights. There's so much that this is like an umbrella over. And I guess I just kind of share the content that resonates the most with me, that I think is the most interesting, that I think will be the most helpful to people, the articles that tend to address the most common myths around veganism. And then I like to throw in sort of funnier and more entertaining content. Vegans tend to behave in really like bizarre and kind of funny, cringy ways. So I like to that content too, of course, because it gets a lot of shares and reactions and comments. But I think it's important to keep people engaged when you're trying to share this information. You can't just be like, giving a boring lecture about something because people are going to fall asleep. So showing them how it's relevant to their everyday lives, even if they're not vegan or have no plans of becoming vegan, kind of helping people understand that like this is actually something that affects all of us, because of the policy changes that they're pushing for and everything else. So it is a worthy cause to be a little bit knowledgeable about.
Yeah, like the veganism topic was definitely has picked up so much momentum, and not over like the past year or anything like that, over like, I don't know, decades probably, right? I think at some point veganism was like the solution to everything wrong in the world. But just recently, we started seeing the opposite side of it through carnivore. um, and you're obviously not carnivore, right?
Not anymore.
Not
Was
anymore.
for months. Didn't feel it was optimal for me in the long term, but I'm glad I experimented with it. I think that there are a lot of people who can benefit from experimenting with the carnivore diet, and I think the results and how long term it works for them, that's individual to the person.
Yeah, so we're gonna end the podcast here because we don't want to talk with non-carnivores. But no,
It's
so
a little awkward because I have allies within the carnivore movement. We have a lot of common ground. But, I think there aren't a lot of people in the anti-vegan space who are not also promoting a carnivore diet. So,
Mhm.
I just have a solely anti-vegan focus. I'm not necessarily pushing one diet over another. So I think that is a little more like accessible. Like it's not just for carnivore dieters.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And
yeah,
and our stance is not everyone has to be a carnivore dieter, right? I mean, plenty of people come to it for different reasons. Many people stay within it for different reasons. But as long as you're eating meat, you're doing the right thing. You know, as long as you're eating meat, you're a team human, and that's cool with us.
Yeah.
Specifically, red meat. Very very important distinction there because red meat will get a lot of flack as compared to the other meats. Um,
yeah. So we should cover, I guess, your veganism journey, and
yeah, what made you uh, hell bent on on destroying the vegan cult, destroying the vegan agenda?
Um, it wasn't actually like my own personal experience with veganism that made me a bitter ex-vegan on a mission to destroy veganism, like I get accused of. I think it was really like I wanted to put the content out there, just like I said, because I had it, like it was all already, the research was already done. It wasn't like I needed to start from scratch. It's like I've put so many hours into researching this topic as is, like just seems wasteful for me not to put it on social media and like see if it gets shared, if it gets out there and helps people. So I just kind of started posting. Like some days I would just post over and over, all like 10 posts in one day. No one was really seeing them. They weren't like getting many views or anything, but I was just like trying to put all this data I had like into something somewhere. And I don't know, I think it was just the progression of like doing more research specifically for this account, finding more and more ex-vegan stories to post. It was just one after another of like, oh my God, I can't believe how many people have been fooled by this. I can't believe how bad the repercussions were for their health. And so many of them that, it's not like they just went back to eating animal foods and then everything was fine. They're then on like this, you know, many year, if not lifelong journey to try to get back to where they were before going vegan. And I think people wonder like, why even bother with this? Most people will quit veganism within a short period of time anyways. You know, like, why waste your time doing this? But it's kind of too late at that point. Like for me, I've been still dealing with the repercussions of my veganism for literally 20 years. So it
Wow.
has really long-term like effects. To just say, oh, they'll figure it out on their own. They'll probably end up eating meat within a year or two anyways. It's like, yeah, but then they could have a severe hormonal disorder that they can never really figure out how to fix after that. Or, you know, it's like you kind of have to get people before they're exposed to all that brainwashing. So at least they have a little bit of skepticism going into it, and they're not just blindsided by the vegan propaganda that they get, you know, it gets thrown at them.
Yeah, like the biggest strength is the emotional appeal, and if you are convinced in that aspect, you can definitely push yourself to stay in the diet longer than you physically can. I think you can mentally convince yourself that you're saving the world, so you're doing the right things. People are telling you you're doing the right thing. So yeah, that I can see how you can stay on it longer than you probably should or can.
Well,
So
I
you
wasn't super motivated by the animal welfare aspect of it. So vegans would probably say that I wasn't a true vegan. A vegan will that, you know, it's not just people who don't eat animal products. You have to be specifically doing it to try to live the least harm lifestyle and reduce harm and cruelty to animals. And part of that is not eating them. So if you're doing it for weight loss or for environmental reasons, they'll tell you, oh, you were plant-based. You were never really vegan. That's the way that they discredit ex-vegans who quit for health.
interesting.
So they would tell me I was plant-based, and that's why I quit, because I didn't actually care about the animals enough. They can't seem to wrap their mind around the fact that eventually some people just realize that veganism isn't the best way to help animals. And that is why they quit, because they do care about animals and they just realize there's a better way to go about helping them. So I only lasted 4 months into veganism, if you can believe that. I'm not a long-term vegan, or, you know, was not a long-term vegan. And I still developed health problems very quickly from that diet. So you don't have to be vegan for 4 or 5 years to have these problems. It can happen to you almost immediately.
Yeah, so 4 months and 20 years later, you're still trying to manage these. Would you mind? Is that something that you want to share? Stuff you're dealing with?
Sure. I know people probably won't believe me when I say that, but at the time that I went vegan, really quickly after starting the diet, I started basically just noticing the symptoms of what I later learned was polycystic ovarian syndrome. So that hormonal disorder is characterized by high androgen levels, so like the male sex hormones. So your symptoms can be things like oily skin, acne, male hair growth, super like awesome things that every woman wants to be experiencing, especially in puberty. You typically see women with polycystic ovarian syndrome are overweight. Most, like at least half, I think, or more are overweight. It's typically like that apple body shape where you have like a skinnier lower body and then all your weight's kind of collected around your midsection, because it's very much associated with metabolic syndrome. Women with polycystic ovarian syndrome have higher rates of, like, I think at least half of these women are diagnosed with diabetes by the time they're 40. You have higher rates of cancer, higher chances of heart disease. And then the polycystic part of it is many of the women who have this have cysts on their ovaries that can create infertility. What else? It's kind of like a lot. It's a lot of symptoms.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have all of them. Oh, irregular periods is the other part of it. I've never been formally diagnosed with this, but I know how they diagnose it, and it's just basically having the majority of the symptoms, which I do. And the treatment for it is just to put you on metformin, which is, you know, a drug that helps sensitize you to insulin, I believe. It's like help treat people who are diabetic and have metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and that sort of thing. So just more or less a Band-Aid approach, like everything else with our modern medical system. So I've been trying to do it with diet and lifestyle changes, and I've been able to like mitigate my symptoms, I would say 90 to 95% of the way. But I have never like gotten to what I feel is like a full remission. And that's part of why I tried the carnivore diet, to see if that would help me get the rest of the way there. I actually felt it was sort of moving me in the wrong direction. So that's why I stopped after 9 months. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now. Like I don't consider myself 100% cured, and I want to just be transparent with people about where I'm at with my health and in my journey. But the changes that I have made have helped me tremendously. So I think I'm on the right track.
Nice.
Yeah, it's healing takes a long time. So
It does.
yeah,
But you learn a lot in the
yeah. Not everyone's got everything figured out. I think it's important to always come back to that point, right? So many times all these voices come across as like they know everything, but I couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people want to just sort of sell their health story as this like miraculous journey of healing. And that sounds really good when you're selling coaching and things like that. But, you know, I'm not doing that. I don't knock anybody who is doing that. But I guess I like was hesitant even to speak out at all in the beginning, because I was like, well, you know, I don't know everything yet. Like I'm not like 100% cured and in remission. Maybe I should wait until I reach that point. But I don't think most people are ever really at that point. And I think that you still have things that you can share that are valuable to other people. And we're all kind of trying to figure it out together. So, you know, teamwork.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people appreciate the honesty and seeing the process for themselves too. Let's take a second and check the comments, because you're getting some love here. So I just want to make sure we cover it. Yeah, you want to start with Stick of Butter Every Day said legends. Shout out Stick of Butter Every Day, also known as Raw Meat Experiment, also known as, what's his other account? Celius Goose Online, I think. Something like that.
Goose.
Yeah. Legendary guy.
Can you see the comments when we show them here on the screen, or no?
I have YouTube open, trying to see if I can see them.
Oh, if you're watching it on YouTube, there's going to be a delay, like 10-15 seconds. So it'll come up. But Jessica says, eating meat, but also reducing or cutting out ultra-processed foods. No problem. If omnivore works better for people, of course, just try not to eat all the junk out there. That's my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. Cutting out the junk is like 90% of the work, right? If you're trying to improve your health through nutrition. Jessica also says they care about the animals, but ignore all the animals that die for their foods. LOL. Oh man, I can't wait to dive deep into that topic.
Yeah, I got a lot on that, because I was just talking to somebody right before coming on here about this very thing. Somebody who considers himself an animal rescuer and a vegan and all that.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then just the last one, Trevor Camplin says, Kelsey is the best. Yes, she is.
Indeed.
Yeah. Shout out Kelsey.
Okay. Trevor knows me from way back. Like he knows me from when I was vegan or shortly after that time period. He found my account. I guess Instagram like suggested it to him or whatever, but I noticed that he started following me, and I messaged him and I was like, do you know who this is? I had talked to him on Facebook, you know, God, it was probably like a year before that. And I was kind of like, you know, on my little anti-vegan soapbox then, telling him some of this stuff. And so when I asked him that, he was like, Kelsey, like you're the only one I could think of that would be running a page like this. So
oh my God.
Thank you, Trevor, for tuning in. You're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Instagram sometimes suggests people based on your phone numbers or contacts.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Instagram will do you like that.
But he had been following other related meat-based accounts and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if it was through that. Like, I'm gonna check to see, you know, who Instagram recommends, like in relation to other accounts. So, like, if people follow you, it will usually suggest me, and vice versa. So they know kind of like these groups, like these little communities, and you can go through and follow all the similar accounts. And so I think that's how people find us a lot. But yeah, small world.
Yeah, power of a network. Yeah, you just click away from the. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome,
It's,
awesome.
and that's probably, 10, 12 years ago when I started gathering all these articles and all this stuff. Social media and the internet was not what it is now. So, I I didn't consciously think at the time, like, I'm going to wait, 10 years into the future where this will make a bigger impact to share. But at the time, like, I didn't even really, it was like MySpace, Facebook, like I wouldn't have been able to share the content in this same way. Instagram has
Hmm.
really an amazing free advertising tool. So we're kind of just, pushing back like against brainwashing, and we haven't had a good way to do that up until now.
No, it's crazy just how much good information you can get on Instagram now. That if you go online, if you're trying to do a Google search, you're not gonna find that like immediately available to you, right? If you're looking for counter vegan talking points, I tried searching for things before we went on this episode, and everything I could find was just like vegans debunking these arguments, right? That we were discussing before. Um,
Yeah.
but so you talked a bit. So you were vegan 20 years ago for 4 months. What would you say was like the main reason that drew you to veganism? What was the main selling point for you?
Okay, so there is a huge correlation with veganism and eating disorders. You guys have probably seen
Mm-hmm.
that. So I think
Yeah,
that's a big
well,
reason.
even dieting and like carnivore, you see that a lot too.
Yeah, just like orthorexia in general, veganism becomes a way for people to restrict. And in their minds, like vegans and vegetarians have the reputation as being like thinner than the general public. So I had been for about a year before that, maybe 6 months before that. I'm 14. Like I'd never been overweight, but I just didn't have like a super thin, fit physique. And every 14-year-old wants to, look like the girls in the magazines and all that. So it's like,
Hmm.
and I thought I was eating basically healthy, or at least I was following what I was told was the healthy way to lose weight and be thin, which is the whole grains and low fat, and you know I'd eat like sliced turkey, like chicken breast, never really eating any red meat. Lean cuisine, microwavable dinners. Like I thought, I'm eating low calorie, I'm eating low fat. Like why don't I have the body I want? So I did like a crash diet, basically disordered eating for a period of like 3 or 4 months, lost a ton of weight, you know, dropped 25 pounds when I probably didn't need to lose more than like 5 or 10. So my mom was getting very concerned with me. But with starving yourself, that's not a sustainable way to lose weight, right? Like you can't just eat 400 to 500 calories indefinitely and then be skinny and everything will be great. Like your health will start deteriorating. But what happens even before that is your body sort of like goes into autopilot mode and you start binge eating, because it's like, I'm not letting your brain control things anymore. Like you're going to eat some food, as much food as you possibly can, and you're not going to stop eating even at the point where you feel like you're going to puke, and you're just going to stand there and keep, like, it was crazy. But that is the way that your body responds to, voluntary starvation, I guess. So this is why a lot of anorexics end up becoming bulimic, because they can't stop binging and then they need to get rid of it and all that. I luckily wouldn't let myself go down that path. I didn't want to ruin my teeth and just didn't want to do all that. So I gained all that weight back and then some. And of course, when you're losing the weight, you're losing like 50% muscle when you're severely cutting calories like that. So when I gained all the weight back, it was mostly gained back as fat. Now I'm like the same weight or higher, but higher body fat percentage. And I think doing that really kind of like set me up to be in a really precarious spot metabolically before going vegan. And that is why I crashed and burned on it so quickly. You've been eating a fairly like normal, I shouldn't even say normal. If you've been eating like more of a whole food diet growing up, like if your parents were smart enough to feed you animal foods and you had sort of a stable foundation nutritionally going into veganism, that I can see those people lasting for years and years because their body has a lot more to draw from. Their microbiome is probably in better shape. It was like the perfect storm, I think my situation was. So within a couple of weeks of going vegan, first of all, I'm extremely hungry. I'm eating all these vegan replacement foods because I don't know what the hell to eat. I'm like, I can't just eat toast and salad and raisins. And it was like, what the hell do you guys eat? My vegan friend told me that being hungry was just part of it, like that you just deal with that. And I just
Oh
thought,
my God.
insane. Like I'm gaining weight. I'm so hungry and I'm eating all these carbs and I'm gaining more and more weight. I'm eating these, seriously, the vegan cheese, most disgusting thing I've ever eaten in my entire life. To the point where you're like, that's not even food. Like you're like spitting it out. You feel like you've eaten liquid plastic. And I can't imagine the torment of like that being your day-to-day life and that's all you eat on a regular basis. I pretty quickly knew like that this was probably not going to last long because I'm miserable. I'm not getting skinny. I'm gaining weight. And then within a few weeks, all of a sudden now my face is breaking out worse than it ever has in my life, like times 10. And I'm just going, okay, like this didn't go as planned. The weird thing is I didn't make the connection between my skin and my hormonal problems being directly attributed to my vegan diet until about 5 years later when I'm doing research on the internet and I sort of stumble across some people talking about low carb diets helping their skin, eating fatty red meat and vegetables, and then this Weston A. Price guy and looking at this. And then the sort of pieces fell into place and it was like a light bulb moment and I went, oh my God, like veganism is literally what did this to me and I can't believe I'm just now figuring this out. So that was the moment where I sort of got on the animal-based ancestral diet train at 20 years old and pretty much everything changed for me, like physically, mentally. You become a different person when you're eating a different diet. So I kind of always knew I'd be like eventually tooting this horn. I didn't know how I wanted to go about it, but I guess I figured it out now. So here we are.
Yeah, there's really nothing like making that connection between health and nutrition, right? Because I feel like for most of our lives, we wouldn't make that link. Like food was just this thing that, you were hungry, you would eat whatever it was, you would just eat, and however you felt after that was independent of whatever you ate. And I think just making that connection is a huge leap forward in terms of like understanding your health and how the human body works.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree because I never made that connection. You could say I was probably like asleep, living through life, just eating stuff, and then just being ignorant of how I felt after eating or how foods affected me. Um, yeah, just learn the hard way.
Yeah. So basically, you said the main reason why you tried it was for you were told it was healthy and it'll help you with losing weight. Um,
Yeah,
what?
I did watch a vegan documentary, which is I think how my dog's chewing on a bone. I don't. Can you guys hear that? Should I grab it from him? Is
It's
it like
okay.
It's okay.
We can hear it. Yeah, but it's okay.
loud? Okay. So the vegan documentary is just the perfect brainwashing tool because it just
Mhm.
wraps up the argument in a neat little bow for you, and it's like, if you were already thinking about doing this to lose weight, well, guess what else? Like, you won't be contributing to this horrible animal torture and you won't be getting heart disease and you're also saving the environment. And so it's like, well, you watch that and you're like, well, you'd have to be an idiot not to go vegan. Like, of course I want to do this. You do feel
Yeah.
like you're, sort of in the club of people who are doing the right thing and helping fix problems with the earth, and everybody else who won't get on board is just like a stupid meat eater that's selfish. And there is kind of that moral superiority that vegans really cling to.
Mhm.
There's so much psychology that goes into it. I was 14, I was impressionable, there was not any of this information available online. If I were to try to go find anybody talking negatively about veganism online, that did not exist. So in a way, I'm kind of just doing like what I wish somebody would have been doing when I was 14 and when I got sucked in. So
Yeah, that's very important. For the longest time, I was never like opposed to eating meat, but I always heard of like people turning vegetarian or vegan. I just thought I just thought it was crazy. I just, I was just like, why they're missing out. But I never realized actually just how harmful it actually is. Until I came across your work.
Mm.
So there's value to what you're doing, because it's not enough that like, yeah, do whatever you want to do. I don't care about what you choose to do, what you choose to eat, but when there's actual harm being involved, and especially when uh, vulnerable, like impressionable people, children, teenagers, and women are being targeted specifically, they're the more susceptible ones, more vulnerable to being actually harmed uh, through veganism, which is dangerous. But I want to ask you, what would you say are if you had to name three reasons, like the three main reasons people fall for veganism, like the three harder selling points? So I know in your case, like you said, it was the health aspect of it, but uh, if you had to pick three, what would you say?
yeah, the three pillars of veganism are animal welfare, health, and environment. And all three of those reasons are bullshit. There are much better ways to achieve those goals than veganism. So that's why my account is literally called No Reason to Be Vegan, because none of those reasons actually are valid. I read a book in 2009 called The Vegetarian Myth, which there's a link to it in my bio, free if anyone wants to browse it. She really does such a thorough job of shutting down each one of these arguments. I think she has like political / humanitarian as like a fourth argument, which would address like land usage and how much food we can grow to feed however many people and that sort of thing. So she just really like nails it. The book definitely has some strong political and feminist overtones to it, but as far as just the anti-vegan arguments, it's like you really can't argue with her on those points. And she goes into a lot of detail as far as the like data with agricultural statistics and things like that, and just really drives home the point that growing those monocrops is our biggest problem. And you can argue that the problem for growing animal feed and factory farming and all of that, and that's fine if you want to make that argument, but you can't then turn around and say the way to solve that is by growing those monocrops and just feeding them to people instead of cows, because you're not fixing the problem. You're still destroying the ecosystems, you're extracting nutrients from the soil, and you're causing a lot of malnutrition. So, and you haven't saved any animals. Like veganism doesn't fix any of these problems. So the more people that see that, I just want people to be aware of these things so that they're not susceptible to getting sucked into the vegan cult. It's like, if people want to do veganism knowing these things full well, then fine, like do whatever you want. Just don't fall for veganism on the basis of those arguments.
Right. Because as you said, there's absolutely no reason to be vegan. I love
Unless
it. NR2BV.
you want to suffer, I mean, that's a reason.
Yeah. How long do people stay vegan? I know you sometimes share like statistics that there's not really any long-term vegans.
Yeah. So the statistics on this are from a study, since the vegans are going to ask you, well, where do these numbers come from? It was conducted by the Humane Research Council. So it's actually like an animal rights organization that did the study. And I don't have it in front of me, so I may not get this exactly accurate, but vegans have a greater adherence to the diet than vegetarians do, which makes sense because vegans die hard in their beliefs. But the facts are something like 84 to 86% of vegetarians quit within the first year. I want to say for vegans, it's like 50% in the first year, but of that 50%, like a third or more quit within the first 3 months. So like a big chunk of people like can't even make it beyond 3 months. And then I'd say after the first year, once you get to like year 5, I'm going to say that probably 70 to 80% of vegans have quit by that point in time. But then you're going to have these ones that white knuckle it and cling on to veganism for like literally decades. It's really hard to say whether or not they are pure vegans that entire time. I think anybody that's done it over like 8 to 10 years is probably starting to cheat a little bit here and there, enough to get them. But I think the longest term vegan that I saw quit veganism had been vegan 40 years from birth. So,
Wow.
You know, sometimes it takes people a really long, and she's the daughter of a pretty prominent animal rights activist. So you see the comments from people that are like, I've been vegetarian 20 years, I've been vegan 20 years. And I'm like, okay, talk to me at year 40, because that might be when you quit, you know. Like, most of these people are not coming anywhere close to that length of time. And the closer they get to that, the more deranged their behavior is. I share screenshots of some of these like 30 and 40 year vegans, and you can just tell from the way they write and the amount of emojis that they use. And it speaks for itself.
Emojis. Yeah, you can tell the nutrient deficiencies are real.
There's a ratio of like, you know, mental stability and number of emojis in their comments.
That's very curious, because from my perspective, it just feels like this vegan movement keeps on gaining momentum, right? Like I keep on seeing more vegan restaurants, more vegan foods in the supermarket,
celebrities promoting veganism.
Yeah, like you go to the restaurants, like celebrities now have like their restaurants. We went to this burger place that's over here in Boston called Wahlburger.
Wahlburger, yeah.
Wahlburger, which is like the burger restaurant by Mark Wahlberg and with his brothers. And you check the menu and it's like, oh, this is Mark's top choice, like Mark's first choice is the Impossible Burger. I'm like, there's no way this guy would fall for this stuff.
Like,
there's no way he eats it.
So disappointing, man. Like, if you needed any more reassurance that every celebrity is a sellout, there you go.
Oh yeah. You have Kevin Hart, right, opening this plant-based food chain, I believe. I don't know, I forget the name right now, but
yeah.
Heart House, I think.
Heart House, yeah. Tragic, pathetic. What are they doing?
They're trying to cash in. They're all trying to cash in. This is the thing that they've been told is the next great investment. Look at James Cameron and his like couple $100 million pea protein investment or whatever, and then and then he has to produce a movie called The Game Changers, which is essentially just like an advertisement for his pea protein products that he sells. So, you know, they're going to do whatever they can to try to manipulate the public mind and make you think that veganism is now everywhere. Veganism is the future. More and more people ever are vegan. And that's all bullshit. That veganism is actually not growing. It's this, you know, smoke and mirrors that they're trying to get their investors to see that this is a good thing to put your money into. They're trying to create this hype and this demand online by just like flooding, you know, every channel with vegan shit, and people are not buying it. Like, look at Beyond Meat. They've had like a horrible last 2 years. Their stocks are constantly tanking. They're like on the verge of bankruptcy. You see all these new vegan restaurants opening, but if you search for it, you will also see a ton of vegan restaurants closing. I can post, 10 vegan restaurant closures. I don't share that content as much because restaurants in general just are hard to keep open. So like,
right. Yeah. It's a hard industry.
I don't necessarily just want to shit on restaurant owners, but it's like, vegan restaurants, I bet if you compared them to the lifespan of a typical restaurant, it's going to be even shorter than that. You know, their
Hmm.
failure rate is super high. So this is the facade of veganism. Is like, it's the future. More and more people are signing up. Oh, look, Veganuary. We've had the biggest sign up ever.
Veganuary.
Five consecutive years in a row. We've gotten more and more, and it's like double what it was the year before. And um, no, it doesn't last. People sign up, they like do it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years, and then they go back to eating meat. So you can't really grow your movement if so many people are quitting constantly.
Yeah, so I guess it's just like this meat grinder. It's just like churning people in and out, right? Like,
Just
so
ruining their health and getting them back out, getting a few
yeah,
dollars in the process. But yeah,
There's
it's
a
like
whole system to take care of them afterwards too. So it's fine if their health gets impacted after it.
yeah,
there's what you think there's
Uh, a
meds and
whole system of healthcare.
yeah. But the
yeah.
healthcare system asks them what they're eating that might be possibly causing all these health issues that they're having.
Oh, they would never ask that. Never
It's
ask
an
that. Yeah,
old school doctor that will actually know what they're talking about when it comes to food, but they're hard to find these days.
yeah, yeah. You know, I feel like one of the biggest challenges when arguing with vegans is that they have this, they have all the supporting body of evidence like in their favor. Whether you want to discuss like environment or health or
No,
or welfare, like it just feels like they can summon the experts at their will. And meanwhile the meat eaters were like, you know, and I know the evidence is there. You've done a great job of sharing it on your page, on your highlights, which are very neatly organized. You know, if anyone's watching, listening to this, you should definitely go follow her and check out all of her highlights, because sometimes even we go there to get some studies. um, but yeah, they just get to summon all these, you know, health authorities. They get to summon the WHO. They get to summon Harvard and Tufts and all these, you know, expert voices. And it just feels like, you know, whoever's opposing their narrative is left holding nothing, right?
that's true, but I think now more than ever, the public is like the public trust for those institutions is at an all-time low
Yeah.
because of recent. So
Hmm.
it's like a perfect opportunity right now. I think you'd have a harder time 10 or 12 years ago getting everyone to believe that these so-called health experts and authorities actually um, maybe not correct about a lot of things, and maybe they don't actually have your best interests at heart. Maybe they're a little more corrupt than you would like to believe.
Yeah.
So that saying things like that to somebody a decade ago probably would have gotten you an eye roll and whatever conspiracy theorist, that kind of response. And there are still people who will respond that way now, but I think there's like a hell of a lot more people that are more open to that idea than ever before. And the great thing is, like, this isn't just stuff that we're making up and not able to back up. There's more and more research coming out now, more and more evidence coming out that is like impossible to deny or ignore. I
Hmm.
haven't posted about going to, which is I posted about it a long time ago, but there was a recent article calling them out again. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, who are like the people that
Yeah.
say veganism is healthy for all stages of life and all that. Um, they've really gotten criticized lately for how deeply in bed they are with both pharmaceutical and processed food companies.
Oh
They
yeah.
at their like events that they do, like conferences and stuff they do, they will just have, chips and soda and crackers and just like a table full of processed foods with this idea that, oh, everything's fine in moderation. Just keep your calories low. Don't eat too much red meat, So when you can show people, this is how much money this pharmaceutical giant or this giant food processing company gave to this organization this year. And not only that, but you can show the influence of the Seventh-day Adventist church members within that group as well. It's like,
Oh yeah.
you can deny that all you want, but the writing's on the wall. Like, these people are giving objectively horrible nutritional advice without any way to back it up. If you were to ask them to provide the evidence of how they drew this conclusion that, you know, veganism is healthy from birth to death, there's absolutely no solid evidence at all. It's like studies that show even children suffering from the diet, but like because they, I guess, didn't die or something, or because the researchers said, well, they did end up with a deficiency, but that's why it has to be well planned. You know, that's like
Yeah.
their little caveat.
You know, maybe they
Well,
lowered the children's cholesterol, and then they're like, oh, you know, all their risk factors were decreased, right? We lowered their cholesterol, and as we know, that's a good thing for reducing risk
they
for
lowered-
heart disease and all these things.
so he won't get a, you know, he won't have a
Yeah.
heart attack. Toddler. That's
Eating
the type
kids
of
cereal.
it's mad.
But yeah, all these like money or donations, it's like it puts people on payroll, so it's people's salaries, right? So obviously influence can be bought, right? Some people like to argue that yeah, I received funding from this X industry or whatever, but they didn't tell me to do anything or influence anything in a certain way. But so obviously, once you have a long-standing relationship with these sort of companies, and they're continuously giving money, there is influence, right? Because that means you more money, you can employ people for longer. You can, yeah, I don't know, just yeah.
Keep stuff in your face with junk food.
I think that it's impossible to ever really say what percentage of it is corruption and what percentage of it is just incompetency.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, how much credit do you want to give them? I think that with this sort of thing, you have a ton of people that are just following orders from above. They're just like trusting what they learned in medical school. They're trusting what they think they know about nutrition, and they don't seem to have like the skepticism of processed foods that they should. It just seems so
Mhm.
bizarre to so many people that work in healthcare, that are doctors, etc. When you try to suggest the idea that the massive increase in processed foods in our diet in the last century is responsible, like directly for this massive increase in disease, they like scratch their head and are like, well, I don't know. And it's like, wait, it's so confusing to me. They really want to sit there. I have like acquaintance friends, a doctor acquaintance friend of mine who I was having this sort of heated exchange with in a group text, and they want to blame the smog that comes out of your car, and they want to blame like, well, people are anymore, and like all these other things. And it's like, yeah, those things might be contributing. I'm sure they are contributing in some way. But what about the food you literally put in your mouth every day that becomes part of your body? Like, don't you think that's a good first place to look? They don't know who Weston A. Price is. Like, they haven't ever done their own research, it seems,
Mhm.
to try to like find answers that may be missing in their medical textbooks. It's just like, well, I think it's just extreme arrogance. They're like, I'm a medical doctor. I'm going to this prestigious school to learn from the best of the best. And like, how dare some stupid person who has a Google degree suggest that they know more about stuff than we do? So I think they just get so blinded by their extreme level of arrogance that they end up being fucking stupid about this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's a full indoctrination camp. You know, when they come out and they tout their medical degrees, they're still using the same information that they learned decades ago, that was being used decades ago today. Like nothing has changed, right? Because after all, we are at like the scientific peak of knowledge today, right? So how come this random person is just going to come and correct me? Like, I know what pills to prescribe when I see the issues. So obviously I'm right.
I have a massive
Yeah, yeah, and
There's a certain God complex that they have, and this is also, there's a peer-reviewed article about this, or I guess an article in a peer-reviewed journal or something, talking about the problem of arrogance among physicians and how it's so antithetical to providing care for people and trying to help them. Your ego is literally getting in the way and potentially, interfering with your ability to give them the best care possible. I don't know if you guys have too, but like, I think anybody that has disagreed with mainstream health advice, that has had to encounter a doctor at some point or another, I've had some very uncomfortable exchanges with them because they hate to be questioned about these things.
yeah, yeah. So it's funny because our family, well, most of our family, they're not medical doctors themselves, but they work like directly in like the healthcare industry. So they blindly trust like their doctors. Like lots of their friends, basically like their social circles are just made up of doctors across all different types of fields. Um, so we totally get you. Yeah, and it's so funny because they'll see us like doing this thing. We tell them like we only eat meat, and it's almost like we're trying to just prove the point to them at this point. But they just won't budge. You think we're going through a phase or something like that. That it because we're young, like we can eat all this red meat and be fine. For that sooner or later, like we're gonna have to pay our dues. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Like they think that you're, healthy and lean in spite of your diet, not because of what you eat. And I felt so. I was at my highest weight as a vegan, and I was probably at least 20 to 25 pounds heavier than I am now. And after finding this information online in my early 20s and changing the way I ate, then I just kind of gradually lost the weight and got into the best shape I'd ever been in without really having to try. Like it barely worked out at all. It was just all changing my diet. And that was not even the goal. The goal was like to normalize my hormones, clear my skin. The recomposition was just sort of like a nice benefit of that. But it would make me laugh because then, at some point in the years following that, being in my mid 20s, I'd be like at a bar and I'd order like a huge, like give me the biggest, greasiest burger with bacon on it that you've got. And I would like maybe take off the bun and not eat the fries and just like eat this big slab of meat. And people would see that and they'd think you're just genetically thin. You don't have to watch what you eat because you're naturally like that. And I'd be like, I just laugh in their face. And then I would use that as like a gateway to like try to convert them about nutrition. But it was like, no, like, trust me, I never used to eat this way. And I was much, much chubbier when I avoided foods like this. So people hear that and they still don't. It's like in one ear and out the other. They're like, yeah, whatever. It's your genetics.
Yeah.
Yeah, people fill in the blanks, or they hear you and they just kind of plug whatever their beliefs over the reality of things or the truth. So yeah, it's pretty crazy because yeah, I mean we experience it all the time as well. Talking to people, some people just don't want to listen. Some people that yeah, I don't know, they just look at us and they're like, oh, these are kids, right? I'm 31, by the way, but yeah, these are just children. Yeah, that can get away. They're young, and can get away with it. But yeah, it's like if they don't want to hear it, they just won't hear it.
Yeah, people are only going to believe what they are willing to, I guess. So, so I don't try to beat it into people too much. It's like if they're not genuinely interested and willing to kind of meet me halfway, then it's not really worth the investment of time. Because I've done that in the past. I've tried to give people all the information and help them and And you can lead a horse to water, but if people don't want
Precisely.
my dad did listen to me, and he did a carnivore diet, lost 80 pounds in a year, says I saved his life. So he
Oh,
after many years of like not really paying attention to what I said about nutrition, I think it was honestly the simplicity of the carnivore diet, and I think that is why a lot of people have success with it, because it just takes all the guesswork out. It's like, just eat meat, like that. There's not a lot of explanation necessary there. You don't need to know, how to track things or measure things or any. It's just like, just eat meat and don't put any bad oils on it, and let me know how that goes. And he did really well with it. So it's definitely effective.
yeah, and delicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
can
Kelsey, yeah, I want to dive into the animal welfare topic, right? Am I a bad person for eating meat? Many of the vegan arguments that we hear are that, as carnists, we are paying for factory farming, we're paying for these horrible acts, we're paying for, the graping of animals, we're paying for we're paying for calves being split up from their mothers after they're born, and we're paying for what else? We pay when we buy eggs. We're paying for the male
The baby
chicks to be, yeah,
breeders and
the male ones are thrown in the, I don't know, the meat grinder and turned into chicken nuggets.
though. Every vegan will always talk about stabbing and blood and stabbing in the neck, and it's always they're like writing a horror movie script, and you have to use as many violent adjectives as you can.
Yeah, they love selling the torture porn.
They
right?
are very graphic.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's like vegans seem to feel this way about eating animals, but not actually about killing animals. So why is it a problem to eat the animal, but not to kill the animal? That's really what it's about for them. If you bring up the fact that, we always talk about crop deaths, right? They're ready for that argument, and they'll just immediately throw it back in your face and say that animals are eating all the crops. So if you're worried about crop deaths, you're creating more crop deaths if you eat just conventional meat. So the response to that is it's twofold, really, because if you're saying that it's just completely wrong and unnecessary to murder animals, as they call it, then you can't turn around and justify, killing animals to eat vegetables, because you're like, well, murder is wrong, but a little bit of murder is okay. Like, that's not how murder is, right? Murder is bad always. It's an absolute thing. You can't be like, well, yes, murder's bad, but sometimes we just have to murder a little bit, okay? And that's just part of life. It's like, well, if life requires murder, then murder can't be immoral, because you literally have to do it to survive. That doesn't make any fucking sense to say that things that are part of human survival is immoral. So what, we're damned either way, basically. So that's part of it. The second part of it is that, yes, vegans can sit there and try to be on their moral high horse about, I've killed less animals than somebody eating conventionally raised meat, which is impossible to quantify, first of all. But even if we could sit there and just really whittle down the math and get like a ballpark average number, you're not killing less animals than somebody who is a conscientious, ethical meat eater, somebody who's going to a regenerative farmer, local regenerative farmer, or somebody that's harvesting their own meat that they've hunted or raised themselves. Those people are by far have the lowest body count, and the animals killed in the most humane way possible. They are treated the best way possible. No vegan on earth can say that they are morally superior to somebody that eats that type of meat. So this whole, like, you're a bad person if you consume the flesh of an animal, but not if you kill more than somebody else who is consuming that animal. Like, what? Letting an animal die in a field and letting their body rot and decompose and go back into the soil and not nourish a human being, how is that morally preferential? It just really like shines a light on how vegans think anything that like contributes to the well-being of humans, that requires the use or death of animals in some way, if those things are bad, then everything we do as humans is bad. Everything we do kills animals. I can keep going. So if you guys have like a side comment, feel free to jump in. But the other thing I wanted to say is that if vegans want to sit there and talk about how we only eat meat because of our taste buds, and that is the only that we eat meat, right? There's no justification for eating meat. It's just taste. Vegans are always like, go look at the vegan recipes hashtag. You will see donuts and cupcakes and all kinds of vegan sweets and treats and chocolatey beverages and ice cream and all kinds of things that are completely unnecessary nutritionally, that are literally for taste pleasure. And
They
those
just eat
things
dessert.
What's that?
Sorry, they just eat dessert.
Yeah, they're
crazy.
sugar addicts, all eating carbs all day long, but they're consuming so many things: cigarettes, alcohol. I've got pictures of prominent vegan animal activists who are drinking one. Vegan Booty is like drinking a White Claw in this one photo, and I confronted her about that, and they just sort of like squirm and don't know what to say, and then they say, "Oh, there's vegan alcohol," and it's like, no, there's not. Growing alcohol, growing plants to turn into alcohol to drink, you're killing animals throughout that process, and that beverage is completely and totally unnecessary for your survival. So you are not to consume those things, because that's the definition of veganism, is avoiding anything that's practicably avoidable, and those things are. So whenever I bring that argument to vegans, it's like, well, veganism is not about being perfect, and we just do the best we can. So it's literally kill animals anytime that you want to, and it's convenient for you, as long as you're not eating them publicly, and then you can call yourself a vegan.
Yeah. So do vegans try to justify? So I guess they do try to justify, because they'll say things like, "Well, we have to eat something, right?" So they can justify, the taking of these smaller animal lives, but at least they're not paying for, these horrible acts that, they love to share the videos of, like the pigs in tight spaces, or like these animals suffering, and even as a, like, of course those are very horrific videos that they share, but I guess it's hard. Like, how do you balance that out? Is it just a matter of the quantity of lives?
Well, the argument that we have to eat something is true. Okay, so why are you not choosing to support a vegan farm? Like, whenever I tell vegans that I typically don't buy conventional meat. I do eat some of it, but the majority, 75% or more of the meat I eat is from a local farm. I've been a customer of theirs for over 4 years. Like, I've got the receipts. I can prove that I'm actually doing what I say I'm doing. Vegans never seem to believe that people like me actually do buy from local or regenerative or organic farms. They're like, everybody says that. There's no way that you're all really buying from those farms, because 99% of the meat comes from the conventional stuff. So it's like, you do have to eat something, but you don't have to eat a vegan diet, and you're not saving any animals by doing that. So you could be eating an omnivorous diet with, eggs from your backyard chicken or whatever, that would be taking less lives, but would not be vegan. And it's not just about the total number of lives that you take too. That's the other point I wanted to make, is that quantify the value of these animals' lives. Like, is the life of an aphid equivalent to the life of a gopher, equivalent to the life of a deer? Like, how do we measure? Are they all the same? vegans that cry about speciesism should feel that all of those lives are equally as valuable, but they don't. And you know that they don't because they don't give a shit about massive pesticide use on all of these crops that they sit there and list off the figures of how many land animals and how many sea animals are killed on a yearly basis to feed humans, but never ever do they mention how many insect lives are taken to grow crops. Like, clearly they don't care. They think that should be swept under the rug. That doesn't matter. So you just start like going down this rabbit hole of vegan contradictions. There's no possible way to not be a speciesist. Like, you would have to, if you hit a fly on your windshield, you would have to like get out and try to render CPR to that. Like, you know, you really can't live a functional life without giving different animals different hierarchies of value. And it's not just about the total number of deaths, it's also about how the animal died. We have laws in place, they're called humane slaughter laws, and the producers or like the processors have to kill them in a way that is quick and painless. So there are various ways that they do that, but they're always rendered unconscious before their throats are slashed. You know, it's not like what is shown in certain vegan documentaries. A lot of times they get disturbing footage that are from like, you know, third world farms that have no oversight and that are dirty.
Right.
And, you know, they know that they can use this footage to their advantage. So I think that they actually have people that produce it for them. You know, that it's not like they're sneaking onto farms and getting this footage. It's like staged a lot of the times. Sorry, getting sidetracked, but animals,
Yeah.
you know, how that gets a bolt gun to the head, that's the best possible way that you could really go out as an animal, or like even as a human. you're lights out before you know what happened, and you've lived a very comfortable till that point. You had shelter, you had medical care, you had like food, water, no predators, no stress. Compared to a wild animal, it's a pretty good deal for them. Now look at the way that animals die for vegan food, or for, you know, they'll be like, it's not just vegans that eat that. But again, that's all they eat. So if you want to look at the way the animals are killed for crops, it's absolutely horrifying. It's like, I'm going to do a video or a post about this soon, because there's something called a gopher blaster. So they put like propane and something into their underground tunnels, and then they literally blow the shit. Like, they kill them, and it's like,
Go for
it's literally
blaster.
war against these animals. Like, they are electrocuted, they are poisoned, they have dogs that go and maul them to death. They use fire to kill them. There's just like all these very painful and very scary and horrible ways that these animals are killed. And to vegans, I guess it's like, well, we didn't have a choice. We have to eat something, right? When you could have eaten a cow that was raised like a pet and then killed before it knew anything happened to it. You can support the farmers that are doing things the way that you think they should be done. Vegans constantly are acting as if we have no choice but to buy from factory farmers. I know there is a difference in cost, but actually this farm that I've been buying from has not changed their prices in the last 4 years, because they're not dealing with all these like supply chain issues and a lot of the increases in costs that the feedlots are dealing with and that the conventional producers are dealing with. My farmer hasn't really had to deal with it. So they've been able to keep prices very stable in this like massive inflation that we're all experiencing. So if anything, I've probably saved money in the long run by using them.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you buy the cow? Do you buy like sides of cows at a time, or like you just go there frequently?
It's a CSA, which is community supported agriculture subscription. So you pay a yearly fee. Mine's like $50 a year. And then every month they give you you can always skip if you are going to be out of town or you just have no room in your freezer or whatever, but every month you basically are up for a delivery unless you skip it, and they will bring me, you can pick and choose what you want in the cooler, but I have a mixture of beef, pork, and a broiler chicken, and then they give me 2 dozen eggs with it as well.
Nice.
Nice little Saturday delivery. Yeah, and it's dropped off at my door, so I don't have to drive out to the farm to get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. But going back to the topic of the animal lives, I feel like I've heard vegans say that, regarding all these small animal lives, like, oh, the small animals, when they hear the tractor coming, they just flee away. So they're not really killing any small animals.
Yeah. But they like to do themselves. The thing is, you are okay. I see it as the difference between, like, if you want to say that humanely raised animals are still being exploited, like I've asked, well, what about chickens, which lay eggs no matter what? Like, you're not,
Mm-hmm.
and keep it as a pet. You don't have to like do anything. You're not taking anything away from the bird, is what I'm trying to get at. The egg's not going to hatch. Same with like the milk. They produce more milk than their calf needs. You can take some of that extra milk and the cow's not going to mind. But they see that as like exploitative.
Right.
So I don't really see how that differs from having a pet. And most vegans do have pets. 40% of them have cats. Many of them put their cats and dogs on vegan diets and abuse them that way. So it's like this, just the amount of contradictions within veganism, it just never ends. Oh, this is a point I was going to make about the mice. So if you want to make this analogy that like a cow and a chicken are like prisoners at the happy like old McDonald farm where they're treated wonderfully. They're prisoners there, right? The mouse that was living in the field or whatever, where now there's being corn and soybeans grown there, it's the equivalent of like either being put in a prison, which is really like a resort, or having your entire town demolished and not being able to live there anymore. And everyone that lived there, if they didn't get killed in the process of demolishing the town, they've been chased out and probably died, because when you're displacing all of these animals, they now have to go in habitats to live in. Well, there are already animals living in those other habitats. So now they're going to have to like literally fight for the resources to try to take over some new spot or get killed by the animals that are already living there. It's not as if they just scurry off into the forest and then everything is fine. You're destroying their entire ecosystem. And there's a whole bunch more we could get into with that, with like rat plagues and all these other problems that get caused by this. But it's not as simple as them just running away. There's a huge body count of animals that you don't even see, because the animals that would have lived there, you've now killed off all the future generations of animals that would have lived there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they're living there. They probably get their resources, the food or whatever. They chose that location because it allows them to live. And if you displace them, they're going to go somewhere where they cannot survive. So yeah, they just run away.
The Steve Irwin quote, exactly what he's getting at, is like, animals can coexist in a pasture. The little family of mice can live in the field with the cow and not disturb it. But you can't do that when you grow crops. Everything has to die.
It's a dead ecosystem of just that monocrop existing. Yeah. I did have a question about like the humane slaughtering laws. So that's a law that like kind of all food processing, animal processing facilities have to follow here in the US, for example?
I imagine there are similar laws in, actually, I think the animal welfare laws are more strict in like the UK and Canada, because I know there are certain, they talk about like pigs being gassed and stuff like that. There are certain slaughter methods that are even like not up to the UK standards. So You can't expect the same types of rules and regulations for animals in countries where people are barely able to survive, but
Yeah.
in all first world nations where animal welfare is a big concern, we are actually doing things. They can always be better, but we're not doing things anywhere near as horrific as they're being conveyed by vegan propaganda. The the PETA videos, all of that stuff. It's shock value. It's meant to traumatize people so that they will be sad and impressionable and upset and want to do something about it.
Yeah, yeah, and because we looked at farms around here in the New England area, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and it's always like a family farm, and they always, they always want to treat their animals right. We haven't really looked too hard, but we just don't come across like the evil farmers or or these people. It just seems like just seems more fiction than what it is reality.
It's their
But
doesn't make sense for a farmer to abuse their animals from a financial perspective, but also just most human beings have compassion for animals that they're caring for. There are some psychos out there for sure, but I believe there are more vegans abusing animals on a percentage, basis than there are meat eaters, because vegans are misguidedly putting their animals on these vegan diets, cats and dogs, and it's just unbelievably cruel. I don't know how anybody can justify that. I cannot imagine ever doing that to any animal, let alone your pet, which is supposed to be like a member of your family.
yeah,
Do you feed your dog like a raw meat diet?
No, he doesn't get a full meat diet. So I actually think that because dogs evolved alongside humans over such a long period of time, that it's likely that they have adapted to eating some cooked meat as well, like humans have. So I don't think 100% raw diet is necessary for a dog. I don't think it's bad for them, but I also think that depending on the dog, giving them some cooked meat along with their raw meat may benefit them. My dog has kind of a sensitive stomach, so I have to be careful not to switch up his food too much. But he basically eats. I buy, a brand of dog food. I don't want to plug them because I'm not a big fan of theirs. They put soy flour in some of their in some of their flavors, but not in others. But overall, the ingredients are just like meat and a little bit of fruits and vegetables and some vitamins. So I give them that. It's like, because I don't have like all the time and money in the world to give my dog this like amazing raw varied diet with birds' eggs and chicken beaks and like all these crazy raw plates that you see people giving their dogs. Like I'm super
I've
impressed.
seen some of that.
Like maybe when I'm like a retired grandma, I'll have like a bunch of dogs and feed them like that, but it's just not feasible for me right now. I'm just being honest with myself about that. And really my dog is super healthy. He like is a stark contrast to most other people's dogs. You just really see it in people, you see it in the pets. It's like his fur. I took him to the vet and I almost wanted to scream because the vet tech was very overweight herself and she kept feeding him those little milk bone. It's like processed grains, and I'm sure there's vegetable oil. Handing it one after the other, and I'm sitting there going, this is just like people doctors, like this is insane. I have to get out of here.
Yeah, you're like, please, he's gluten free.
I wanted to say something, but again, it's awkward to try to tell the person who's supposed to be the expert on animals, hey, can you not like give him that? It's bad for him. Like I was like, it's not worth getting into it right now. Like just be out of your.
She'll probably be like, what's wrong with these cookies? I eat them myself.
Yeah.
Throw some in her mouth.
telling me that I should brush my dog's teeth. Going, maybe it's because all of your patients feed their dogs this shit that you think is okay, that they have to brush their teeth. Like, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like, why do they not see? Okay, why are dogs the only animals that have to brush their teeth? Why don't other, they don't make these really obvious connections. It's just
Dogs have
flabbergasted.
always brushed their teeth.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
just common knowledge.
Yeah.
They're born with toothbrushes.
Anything canine teeth cleanings are a thing. Like any extra ways they can think of to make money off of you, I guess.
True.
Yeah. Just as another side note, on the topic of dogs, I think it's very interesting how dogs are not able to eat many things. They're not able to eat like chocolate, and I understand like they're like nightshades are like poisonous to them. Along with like many other foods that you just can't tolerate. It makes me wonder, should we be eating these foods in the first place? Since we evolved with dogs together, right? Maybe they're a kind of canary in the coal mine
Oh yeah.
for humans, maybe.
It's a good question. And it's very random too. Like they can eat certain fruits and vegetables, but not others. I know like my dog will eat some fruit and stuff, and I've seen actually videos of wolves eating berries off of bushes and stuff like that. So I think dogs learned to scavenge certain types of plants, but definitely like I know they can't eat grapes and onions, and
Grapes, yeah.
it'd be a really interesting topic to study, like why, like how exactly are these things causing issues with dogs and why. But
Yeah.
But that would be a good segue into another thing we wanted to talk about, which was why some people do or don't eat dogs. Why are dogs often eaten in certain countries and not others, and cats too.
Yeah. Where do we draw the line, right?
Okay, that is when I said I wanted to send you guys a picture to put on the screen. Have you seen that meme? It's like a PETA billboard, and they say that, where do you draw the line? And then it's like animals.
Yeah.
There's like cats, dogs, rabbits, horses, and somebody made a response to it that was just like hilarious, and it's like the line here, and it's like normal life, zombie apocalypse, like depending on what the situation is, animals that are normally not eaten as food are now we're now reevaluating them as being potential options because we got to eat if we're going to survive. So I'm going to reshare this article. I was one of the first ones I put out when I but it's great, and the title is like why dogs are not dinner. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we have it on the screen. Click the third one. I think that's the one.
The third one.
Yeah, regular
so it's
economic collapse and apocalypse.
Yeah.
So
you'll eat horse and rabbits if it's
save
like
money.
Yeah, to save money, and then oh my god.
Yeah, pets apocalyptic.
So vegans like to say that too, like, why don't you eat your dog then? If you're going to be morally consistent, you would eat your dog. So the reason we don't eat cats and dogs, at least in some countries, is because of the fact that they evolved alongside of us and helped us to acquire meat. So mainly dogs. Cats were mostly for crop protection, but dogs literally affected human evolution in such a significant way that there are people that think that like humans would not have migrated to and conquered the parts of the globe, like especially the snow-covered parts where we had sled dogs and things bringing us there and helping us to survive. So they have basically earned their place next to our table instead of on our table. That's the way the article put it. They have developed a really close bond with human beings. Dogs make great companion animals, unlike pigs and horses and goats and really any other animal that you could like. There aren't really any other animals that can easily replace dogs, that can do the same type of tasks that dogs can do. And I posted this as an infographic as well, which is like, what's the difference? It's funny that vegans will ask you, or will say that there's no different. They do this name the trait thing, like name the trait that makes it okay for you to eat that animal. How does it go? But like if a human possessed that trait, something along those lines. That just made me lose my train of thought. Sorry. They just say crap. I lost it.
Yeah, so you're mentioning the infographic and the vegans like to bring up something about about the traits about dogs or something.
Like the trainability of a dog, the physicality of the things that they can do, like pull a sled across the snow for miles and miles on end. They're very adaptable creatures. They eat a very similar diet to us, so we have been like co-evolutionary buddies with dogs, and that's why we don't really eat them, because there's more useful things for us to do with dogs. Like at this point we just mainly use them as companions, but for a long time they were herding animals. They were helping us keep our flock, or our animals from keeping them safe, using animals as guardian dogs for protection. Like literally the list just goes on and on. And then
they're badass.
Yeah, like man's best friend. And then in addition to that, they eat meat. So it wouldn't make sense for us to feed a dog meat just to get like a little bit of meat off of that dog's carcass. If you feed a pig or a cow a bunch of grass and plants and things that humans can't digest, they turn into these massive, 700-pound, 1,500-pound animals that provide tons of meat. So it's just really a lot more logical to eat some animals than others, which you would think is just a totally obvious thing, but to a vegan it's not. They almost revert back to this really childish, I don't know if it's on purpose or what, but to sit there and act like you can't tell the difference between a pig and a dog and why it would make sense to eat one more than the other, that's hard to understand. Like most people should be able to see the pretty obvious differences in the traits between those animals.
Well,
the other thing
sorry, go ahead.
Is just that in some cultures they do eat dogs and cats. So it's kind of a point to be making in the first place, because it's like those animals are eaten. Like people do eat those animals. And I kind of thought that was mainly for economic reasons, but I actually got a comment from somebody who, I want to say they were from Cameroon, who said that we eat all animals and it's not a poverty thing. It's more of a cultural thing. It's like animals are food, and yes, you can keep an animal as a pet, and I'm not going to eat your pet, but that doesn't mean that animals are not food. It's just not a taboo in their culture. So of course they don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You want to check the comments? Because
yeah.
Trevor was saying, so we have Bone and Shadow saying waving high. He says, "Oh, the medical system is absolutely the worst." And then Trevor saying, "I'm wondering how nutritious a schnauzer really is compared to a ruminant animal."
Good question.
It's in the name of science. Yeah. And then he said, "There's a surplus of dogs in Bali, and they're totally eaten here." I guess he's in Bali.
Yeah,
that's cool. So yeah,
comes to population management there.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, as you said, they eat them in Cameroon, and like it's totally cool. So if you were visiting one of these countries, would you give it a try?
Oh, already like ostracized for answering that question, but I kind of feel, when in Rome, if I was visiting and I was like with somebody that was serving it to me, I can't see myself being like, no, I can't eat this, you know, like
Yeah.
it's prepared and on your plate. But I've like admitted that to people here, like people, this world, this internet community, and they pretty much look at me like they don't want to ever talk to me again. So,
Yeah.
I guess the cat's out of the bag now. But yeah, like I love my dog to death. I still think that you know, I understand why the taboo on eating dogs exists in Western countries. I don't necessarily think it would be a reason for me to not experience other cultures fully. If I were, you know, it's like, would Anthony Bourdain turn it down? Like, I don't think so. So if I would eat any other,
That's a good answer. That's a good go-to answer. Would Anthony Bourdain turn it down? I don't think so. So why should I?
Yeah,
and
that's a good
I don't,
point.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, what like celebrities do. I'm not a huge fan of his, or you know, not a fan of his. I'm just saying he strikes me as somebody that would never turn down an opportunity like that to just experience like different cultural food related things as they can. I've never been afraid to try different things. I've been very adventurous, especially since becoming carnivore. It's like, yeah, like give me the weirdest cut of meat I can possibly find. Like I'm like, oh, I want to see what it's all about.
Yeah,
So
I think it opens a whole new world, right? You're like, you realize animals are indeed food, and there's more animals than just beef, pork, and chicken to eat
yeah,
out there. I want to eat all of them.
Yeah.
yeah. 5
I want
animals
to,
we've all our lives. It's like there's a lot more
yeah.
animals out there.
I
I'm
mean, I
curious.
have no trouble admitting, like, I would try dog meat. I mean, I wouldn't set out to find it, you know.
Hunt out a dog.
Yeah, I wouldn't set out to find it to, "Oh, I just need to try it so bad here in America." But, if you're walking down the street market and it's like, they have the tacos or something with the meat, what are you gonna do if not give it a try?
It's
And
true.
yeah, especially like and then you go to like if you go to like third world countries, they'll have like you'll be able to eat like endangered species.
Well, if you
So
start selling those animals meat, they're not endangered anymore because now there's a profit to raising them. So
there you go. There you go.
solve some endangered animal issues that way by allowing people to raise them for hunting and you know
Yeah,
what
because
there's
because
an
I know
animal around, then all of a sudden people are breeding it like crazy.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm not familiar with what foods you would be like forbidden like in the U.S., but I know that
Horse,
horse meat.
yeah, it's illegal.
Oh, really? Hmm.
According to what I read, they were claiming that is because horses generally have a ton of different drugs given to them throughout their lives. Like,
Hmm.
I need to go back and read it again. I can't exactly remember if it was like because
Yeah,
of horse racing and there's like steroids and weird things given to them, but that was
it's
the
not
justification
safe.
that horses have too many types of medication in them and they didn't want that. I'm like, but we do a lot of that with the livestock that we eat, so I don't know.
True.
Can't sell or buy horse meat, and then there's different types of organ meat. Lung being one of them that's banned. I know that because it's used in a traditional Irish dish, and you can't get it here, but you can get it in Ireland.
Hmm,
Lungs.
there you
Wow.
Yeah,
go.
What kind of superpower do lungs have that they don't want you to have it?
Yeah, now I really gotta try lungs.
Yeah.
and then the excuse for that's really weird too, and it's like, well, the gastric juices get into the lung tissue when it's being processed, and you can get sick from that, and it's like, well, they're just, I don't know, but doesn't that get all over everything else too? I have a lot
Yeah,
of questions.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely they can't explain why raw milk is illegal in most states, right? So there's always some explanation. Doesn't mean it's like true or happens most of the times. So yeah, very curious about lungs.
Yeah, I know brain is like pretty controlled too. Like that's not easy to find.
Can
Brain.
get
I'm not sure it's possible.
I've bought lamb brain. I think it was imported, but
Yeah.
and sometimes you like at certain stores I've been able to find like the whole lamb skull with like eyeballs and everything still on it, and heard that is like the best. Do the whole lamb head, boil it, crack the skull open, scoop the brains out and all that stuff. But you can't get cow brains here because of the mad cow fears, I guess.
Hmm.
What are they doing with all those brains?
Yeah.
Keeping it for themselves, I guess.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, but I guess we already touched on this a little bit, but on the topic of should we focus? Is it fair to focus on the quantity of animal lives lost, or like the methods in which it's raised? What is more important? Like for example, I've just been thinking, like one cow, you always hear like one cow can give you like upwards of like 400 pounds of meat, right? And usually like I think cows will be slaughtered at like 18 months. But then if you consider like another animal like rabbit meat, a trio of rabbits will give you, if you set out to like breed them for meat purposes, three little rabbits can give you like upwards of like 600 pounds of meat in a year, right? For like a way smaller footprint, and in terms of like feed conversion, you could argue that rabbits require less input for more meat, so maybe but it does require more rabbit lives than one cow life, right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying here? So like there's this like a balance going on, and then to take it to like an extreme, you could make the same argument for bugs, right? Like, oh, crickets have such a small footprint, you can eat like 10,000 crickets, but it's still going to be like more efficient in terms of like weighing out like the resource intensity of providing our protein, and putting aside like the rabbit starvation issue, right? Because you need some fat. Like fat is good.
So I think it's totally arbitrary and futile to try to count the deaths that you're causing with what you eat and try to minimize deaths, like the number of deaths. That doesn't make any sense because vegans are constantly getting confused and thinking that they are saving an animal if that animal is not being bred for consumption on their behalf. We don't save an animal's life by preventing it from being born. Like that is what I want people to take away from this when they're talking to vegans.
Mm-hmm.
And, this whole idea of there are these online calculators that are like, put in the date that you became vegan or vegetarian, will tell you how many animals you've saved, how many gallons of water you've saved, this and that. And it is literally just, I would love to see the way that this, website was written, like the coding and how they determine this number. And I'm sure they've got some bullshit on there about how they figure it, but it's just so funny because it's like, what do you mean you saved those animals? Like, are they living on an island with Tupac somewhere? Like, how did you save them? They don't exist. They were never able to be born and enjoy even 1 second of being alive. So if that's saving something, that's when you start to go down this really dark path of veganism. It's like, so are we going to save humanity by like sterilizing the population and preventing any more human births? And you do have a lot of antinatalism within the vegan community, but this idea of preventing a life is saving it is totally fucking wrong and dangerous. Wouldn't it be better to bring the animal into the world, give it the best possible treatment ever, and then give it the best possible death that you can? Animals will die. All animals will die. All humans will die. Like this whole concept of we have to prevent death is totally the wrong goal. What we need to do is give the animals the best treatment, the best quality life, raise them in such a way that they're going to be the healthiest animals possible for us to consume. That already makes us like the most benevolent predator on Earth, like by a long shot. There is so like you can go to Nature is Brutal, Nature is Metal, those types of accounts, and just how truly brutal life and death usually is for these animals. And if they're not being killed by a predator, they're dying slowly over weeks and months of starvation or disease. This concept that like you can have cows that regenerate the pasture, but you don't have to kill them and eat them. It's like, well, how do they die then? They die slowly and painfully of old age, or like a predator gets into their pen one day and eats them, or there is no pleasant way to go out more than or more peaceful than being put down by a human being. So if you care about animals, you care about the welfare of animals, and humans are included in that. We are animals. The vegan option just, it will never ever work. And the sooner you can get people to face that and realize, this is the other thing, is that vegans, if they were wanting to help and they were able to come to grips with reality, those are the most likely people to financially support the regenerative farmers, right? So veganism is actually taking away customers and financial support from these struggling farmers who are raising their animals humanely and trying to do things right and trying to fix all these problems. So vegans, it's not helping anything, and it is actually taking away from people that are doing the right things. It's a very bad thing.
Yeah, taking away from the people who are trying to do the right things in favor of almond milk.
Yeah.
Like,
in favor of giant corporations that care nothing about their health, care nothing about the environment. All they do is greenwash and virtue signal and make. That's why you see this constant advertising and shoving all this shit down our throats, is because they know if they can sell us on it, they can make a much higher profit margin on these products than on a pasture-raised chicken.
Yeah, absolutely. And
farming, that's, I don't want to say that's the sad thing, because it's like, we need food to be affordable for everyone. Farmers have a really hard job. They need to be fairly financially compensated, but people don't go into farming to get super rich. That doesn't really work.
Yeah, I mean, the farmers still struggle a lot with pricing their product, especially when they have direct customer relationships. Like the farmer that we get eggs, duck eggs, and milk. She held off a lot on increasing the price on her milk and eggs, but the feed of the input was going up, but she held off because she was like, I don't want to raise my price.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a lucrative career, or it's a very humane career to become a farmer. Which is why I love that the point that you brought, like veganism is just really, well, out of the many things that it is, it never thought of it as a way to take away resources from farmers, from the people that are trying to feed you.
Yeah. Like the veganism is a way to milk their members dry, basically. So a lot of these, like, the influencers in the vegan movement are all making tons of money selling their supplements and all their crap to their vegans. There's all these websites, donate money to save these animals, donate money to save these dogs in China. It's always like, give us your money, give us your money, give us your money, and we'll take care of animals with it. But then you don't really see what's happening with your money or with those animals. There are these like horrible stories coming out where they found one sanctuary owner that had hundreds of dead animals buried in the backyard of the sanctuary, and just, I think what they have, like big dreams about saving animals, and then when the reality of taking care of so many animals and all the costs and all the work involved, actually, like when that reality hits them, their love for animals kind of goes out the window, and they're like, oh shit, this is actually really hard, and these animals are a pain in the ass, and they end up buried in the backyard for some reason. But the point is, like, vegans could be using that money towards something that is actually doing some good and is actually giving animals a very good quality life.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, yeah, and you bring it up because you said, there's it's tough to talk about it, but who better than someone who understands suffering? The human species understands suffering the best in this earth, right? So obviously, we even have humane laws to kind of end the life of an animal. So who better than us? The alternative is much worse. Other predators that are not going to be as humane as humans. um,
If you're an
but
animal,
yeah,
you're not leaving this earth in a peaceful way. It just doesn't happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I looked up one of the calculators. I think I showed it briefly. I don't know if you can see it on your screen. Does
Barely.
it show up?
I'm familiar with that.
You've seen this one before?
I think so, yeah.
So if you go 10 days vegan, you have saved 10 animals. You have saved 11,000 gallons of water, 400 pounds of grain, 200 pounds of CO2, and
Like,
apparently the
who's eating
forest too.
today? Like, I don't even think most carnivores are eating 10 whole animals every day.
An animal a day? That's
Like,
crazy.
Trying to think of how you would accomplish that, and I'm like, I can't eat a whole chicken in a day. Well, maybe if that's all I ate, but these numbers, do you see what I mean though? It's just, it is literally like they just pulled it straight out of their ass. It isn't even close to believable or accurate. It's just hilarious. And then you see the ad at the bottom, right? Change a life, give us your money. Here's a picture of a cute dog. It's just a fucking money-making scam.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, they're basically just taking days. The number of days equals the number of animals. That's just a formula,
So,
and then
yeah, they think you eat an animal per day.
30,000 square. Like, oh God.
look,
I actually saved this many animals by buying from my local farmer versus a vegan actually saving this many animals. Like, insects are animals too, and all the little field rodents and things that I didn't kill from getting grass finished beef. We need to make our own website like this. How long have you been eating? You've saved this many more animals, and we'll have like the vegan column, and it'll be zero.
Oh my God. Yeah. That'd be such a good idea.
oh yeah, I love it. That would definitely be very good.
Yeah.
Just gotta find
Man.
web development.
I know, right? I mean, they have all the resources, they have all the media backing, they have the Netflix behind them,
All the
The whole
money
enterprise.
all the
have
money.
of sort of dark, shadowy people that pump money into these causes and like fund their street campaigns. And of course, you got Earthling Ed, and he's got a book, a really polished videos that he puts out. Like, he's got obviously
Yeah,
a team
really,
that,
really high quality content.
he's got high quality equipment, the cameras they use. Like, this is not some 20-something-year-old kid off the street who just decided to become a vegan activist. He is literally like somebody that was chosen to
Oh yeah.
he was trained. You can tell by the way he speaks and the way he debates people that like he's been coached on this. That they want you to believe it's this just totally grassroots, organic kind of save the animals movement. But I'd love to know the people paying Ed's bills, the people that helped him get a restaurant and an animal sanctuary and all this other stuff. They saw that people listened to him, I think, and then they were like, okay, like, this is our guy. He's gone through sort of this physical transformation over the years too. He doesn't look as bad as he did when he first started doing this stuff. So it's like,
Oh wow.
he used to wear his hair like up in a bun a lot, and you could really kind
Mhm.
of see like his like receding hairline and like thinning out and stuff. And so
Mm.
now his down, and it looks like he's had some like Botox or filler or something. His face looks different. Um, I've obviously analyzed this a little bit, but he
Yeah, no, this is fascinating. I've
Yeah,
never heard this. I don't pay much attention to him.
same.
But I mean, I
he
totally see it now. Like it just makes sense.
He's
You
a
know,
CIA
people
asset.
these people get chosen. Like,
people refer to him as like vegan Jesus, that Jesus look
yeah,
stuff. And I always talk about the cult stuff, but it's like a lot of the cult leaders that you've seen have also had that same sort of like Charles Manson, David Koresh. Like there's several of these like very influential figures, and they have that sort of Jesus haircut, and like they sort of seem to try to style themselves that way. And I don't think that's by coincidence. Like I think they've, you know, like they've placed themselves into this role, and their physical appearance just sort of plays into all of that. Like it's like this
mhm.
character that it's it's a cult.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, yeah, it people definitely believe um, appearances. You could say that's why there's so much effort in amplifying this character, CIA asset, uh, Earthling Ed. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
uh, yeah, because yeah, people will listen. Um, that's
He
okay.
this role of like you have your Joey Carbstrong, who is like the crazy militant vegan that used to be in prison, and he has that like that deranged violent thing going on. But then Ed
Mm.
is sort of the like peaceful, like literally like I'm vegan Jesus, like I'm here to have a calm and reasoned debate with you. And I think they feel that's more effective obviously than like the crazy violent vegan that's just yelling stuff at people. And you know, like Ed's convincing. He he
Yeah,
is
very
better
eloquent.
spoken. Like you've got Psycho Freely, the banana girl, you know, they're not the best. They do have their own, like they do appeal to people though. They have audiences that really like, they have surprisingly large audiences that follow them. I think a lot of them are really young people that follow them, but Ed tries to sort of be that like intelligent and educated and articulate, and that I kind of see him as enemy number one within the vegan movement because of those things. I think he like the potential to convince the most people. So when I start rolling out my YouTube videos, a lot of them are going to focus on going after things that Ed has said.
You're coming after him.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too.
That's the other thing is like, he will never respond to anything, any comments that I leave. He won't block me. He won't interact with me at all. And that I've gotten a response from almost all of them at this point. Like Freely has blocked me, Joey's blocked me. Ed will not engage with me at all. So that I think makes me even more motivated to like try to get a response out of him.
Yeah. What about Mike the Vegan? I've seen some of his YouTube stuff. I don't watch these guys, so I don't really know. But
Just like the handful of names that we know.
yeah,
So what I will tell you about Mike the Vegan is that most people don't know he lost a child at 10 weeks old, and he never mentions that. Of his followers, most of his followers have no idea they ever had a kid. Um, it's like the saddest and most tragic thing I could ever fucking imagine anyone going through. So it's
that's
really
yeah.
it's just really shocking and confusing to me that he's able to justify continuing to push the vegan agenda when he doesn't know that that wasn't a factor, because both he and his wife were vegan, had been vegan for years, and had a kid, and within 2.5 months just mysteriously passes away. And there's a
Wow.
message about this that he posted on his personal Facebook page that I found because I had heard this rumor, but I spent a long time looking through his social media, and there was zero mention of this child. He just literally acts like it never happened. So I don't know, man, like part of me doesn't even want to talk about that because it's such a tragedy and it's such a sensitive thing to bring up. But I also that how can you hide something like that from your audience if there was even a tiny chance that the diet had something to do with that? Wouldn't you want to prevent that from potentially happening to somebody else, and at least be honest with your audience and say, here's what happened. We don't know what the cause was. Draw your own conclusions. But instead, he just continues on pretending that never even happened and just keeps pushing veganism. Like, that's just, I can't understand that. I can't even begin to understand that, other than just that his finances are tied to it, his identity is tied to it, and he can't imagine doing anything else. But the more I look into veganism and the leaders of the vegan movement and the things that have happened to people while they're vegan, this is what I mean about just like getting so horrified and disgusted by the damage this diet has done and how little it's talked about and how little it's acknowledged. And I just feel more and more compelled to talk about it and to get this stuff out there.
Yeah, to expose it because it's real. It's real.
It's real.
And
Multiple messages from people telling me that they miscarried while vegan, went back to eating meat, and had X number of healthy pregnancies after that. It's really well documented that veganism negatively affects fertility and pregnancy. But if you were to suggest that, his diet and his wife's diet may have had something to do with what happened to their child, I'm sure I would probably be ripped apart for saying that.
yeah.
Anti-Vegan Tuesday made a video about it on her channel, and of course people were quite upset about it. But it's like, it needs to be talked about because we have to let people know that this is a possibility. We can never say one way or the other how much veganism contributed to it, but wouldn't you give your baby the best possible chance? And veganism is not giving them a good chance.
Yeah, you're right.
People have had 10 kids while vegan. So it is possible to have a baby while you're vegan. But people don't seem to notice the subtle deterioration that's happening, or the failure to thrive, or the failure to reach the full growth potential, or whatever. So parents can easily justify it and say, well, my kid, it's not like their teeth are falling out or their hair's not falling out, or it's like, as long as the health issues are not dire, they can just sort of brush it off and pretend like it's not happening. But it's this slow, insidious process that just destroys you.
Yeah. So let's read the comments, because Suffering Sucks is saying, could it be that the death was caused by something that was not vegan related? And of course, I think, of course,
but
we don't know.
It's very uncommon in today's world to have a baby just die for no reason. It's extremely uncommon. And so, draw your own conclusions. But because the medical establishment is not set up to look for this, I'm sure nobody asked her, what was your diet? What were you eating? There were some things implied in his comment when he was describing his wife feeding the baby, and he mentioned something about she was starting to gain on the growth charts or something like that. It was a weird comment that implied that the baby wasn't growing or gaining weight as it should have been. And that's super common with insufficient vegan breast milk. You know, there was a baby that
Right.
died that vegan breast milk. So there's, like I said, like no one can ever say what the actual cause of this was. You have a hole in your heart when you're born that will either close up on its own, or for some people it doesn't fully close, but it doesn't really cause them issues either way. It's like a fairly common, I can't remember the name of it. The baby had that, but again, like it's not something that typically just randomly kills a child after a couple of weeks. That's not a normal outcome. So it's just something that people should know if they're following somebody and he's vegan and his wife's vegan and they're sitting there banging the drum about how great veganism is and how healthy it is, and yet they
Yeah.
secretly love them and they're not telling anyone that. Like, I just think that's highly irresponsible. And it's
Yep.
just so true. I feel so horrible for her because she really thought she was doing the right thing, and she's like suffering in the worst way possible because of it.
Yeah, no, it's truly horrible. I had no idea about that. Truly shocking. I didn't mean to like fish for that. When I asked
No,
about him, I just seen him on YouTube because he does a lot of
nobody,
videos like
and
yeah
I've been
responding to like yeah
how much I wanted to speak out about it, but I
yeah
guess
it's
at the risk of making them uncomfortable, I think the greater risk of people not knowing just how bad the consequences can be. And again, I can't say that this was directly caused by veganism, but with all the other examples we have of children being severely malnourished and permanently physically damaged by vegan diets, it's not really that big of a stretch.
yeah yeah. I mean yeah,
It's definitely
makes
worth
sense.
mentioning and talking about it, because if it can't be something that's in the shadows, right? People will ultimately determine themselves what's best for the children, but they should know everything. Um, and obviously, these people who have this lifestyle, this diet pattern, that's it's something that stands out. So it's definitely a factor.
Yeah, Trevor Camplain says, "What do you guys think could be happening psychologically with long-term vegans who are fueled by sugars and carbs? Could the lack of animal fat be contributing to detrimental behavior patterns we see?" Uh, Definitely yes. I think all roads point to the same conclusion, right? Like, nutrition has a direct impact on your health. A lot of this is mental health too. It's
B12.
yeah, in children, it's directly related to their development and their growth. So, as an adult, you might be more resilient to putting yourself at a nutritional disadvantage like that. Um, but definitely, the brain is a very fatty tissue, right? So fat is good. Fat is good for the brain. If you're not eating fat,
Yeah, I mean,
like,
even the people that we talk to, like the mothers that say that they feed their children, more animal foods, the children are more calm. They're not um, they're not as anxious or as noisy as the um, kids that are, being eating sugar and other
yeah, hopped up on
carbohydrate
sugar.
rich. Yeah. So I think that is a piece of evidence.
Yeah, but these people. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I feel like it becomes this vicious feedback circle with the, like, most vegans actually are struggling with mental health issues before they come to veganism or vegetarianism. The studies that have found the higher rates of mental illness in these people have noted that a lot of these were pre-existing conditions. So my hypothesis is that a lot of these people had poor nutrition early. They obviously weren't vegan or vegetarian, but as we know, like, you can still have a really terrible processed food diet that's not, even if you're eating animal
Mhm.
food, chicken breast or things that have very few fat soluble vitamins and other nutrients in them, it's just not cutting it. So you can kind of have poor mental health because of that. And then I think that makes them more susceptible to be swept into this cult because they have often, body images, body image issues. If you're not healthy, you don't feel good about the way you look, you're insecure, you maybe have other unhealthy habits that you're using to deal with just the fact that you're unhappy. So you're like, I don't know, like binge eating, playing video games, like drinking soda or alcohol, or just addiction in general. It's like it sort of branches out into all these other things. And then I feel like these people are sort of prime candidates to be like swept up into the vegan movement, because it's like, this is going to make you a morally superior person. And that kind of appeals to people that are struggling with their identity and their self-worth and all of that. And just kind of having this like little community to belong to, like they're feeling like an outsider, they're not feeling super confident or accepted. And then like this gives them something to, like some sort of purpose and some group to belong to. Then they start eating this way, and like the mental health just gets worse and worse and worse. And now they're like really stuck in it. I use that analogy of like going down into the mine where there's a gas leak, and then you get too confused and discombobulated and you can't find your way back out. And that's kind of what's happening to vegans. Like they were kind of borderline going into it, but then after years and years of doing it and consuming so much of that propaganda, which really changes their worldview to just hating everyone and despising everyone else that's healthy and happy and eats meat. Now you're like in this really bad place that's really hard to get out of. And I don't think the majority of vegans end up there, actually, because most people just can't sustain the diet. They don't have the willpower or the desire. They're like, a lot of them are jumping ship early, but it's like those really die-hard, long-term, very animal rights motivated people that you see like they're in their 40s, 50s and up, and they're just like their mental capacities are shocking. They just things that they say, the way they present themselves online. I get accused of bullying and running a hate page so often, but to my credit, I literally have dozens and dozens of like screenshots and things that I could use to bolster my point, but that would like basically shame somebody else. And I don't post that stuff. So I'm not as bad as I could be. Like I try to get my still being somewhat respectful to people.
Yeah.
I do tease people. I do like make jokes and things here and there, but I think overall, like I'm not nearly as like cutthroat about this as I could be, even though I'm telling you, this would really drive home my point that these people are just on another planet by the time they've been vegan long enough.
Yeah, I mean, your page is basically truth, or at least rejecting the lies that veganism is. And there's no nice way to do it, because if someone has built up their entire identity, their life's goal, right? As you say, some of these people want to belong part of a group. They don't have much going on. They don't have a goal they're working towards. They just taking the vegan offer of, if I just eat this way, I'm suddenly like the savior. So when you're attacking that image that they've bought into, then their feelings are gonna hurt. So you're gonna get called out on being a hate page, but you're just bringing down the lies.
Yeah, I think another important factor in this whole equation, in this whole downward spiral that these people go through, is the fact that they're having these mental problems, and then they might go to the doctor for it, and then they'll be prescribed on medication for those things, and so now they're eating like shit. They're relying on these pills, and that's just a really, really tough spot to be in for any human. And many other people, even non-vegans, end up in situations like that, where it's just hard to be to get pulled out from. And I've even had vegetarian friends who have had like severe issues, just being like dependent and reliant on medication, uh, for mental health purposes. Um, it's you can't just go tell these people, oh, if you eat a steak, it'll get fixed. Um, they'll bark at you, and they'll cancel you essentially.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen to me actually, with some former friends, but
Yeah, you've lost friends.
yeah, and it's tragic because everyone around these people is just telling them that they're doing the right thing, I guess.
Well, and it's funny. There was just an article that came out not too recently saying that the idea of depression being caused by a chemical imbalance in your brain is
Right.
bogus. Never even a real thing that was ever proven. It was just pushed. And no matter how many of these things seem to come out saying like, oh, whoopsies, like what we've been saying as a matter of fact, proven thing for the last 10, 15 years or whatever, turns out, yeah, that never mind about that. And people don't seem to lose any of their they don't lose their credibility. You know what I'm trying to say? That the medical establishment loses no credibility in their eyes, even after all these things coming out saying that they're wrong. And this is why for a long time, I actually didn't think I would have to do this. I was like, well, there's other people out there that are spreading this information. Like Mark Sisson was kind of the big, like Mark's Daily Apple, the paleo primal movement back in the day. I just thought, well, this information's already out there. Like it's already out there on the internet if people want to find it. So eventually everyone will just realize that saturated fat's not a problem and that all this stuff was wrong. And like, so I've been sitting here waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Years later, like, yeah, no, that they're going to just keep this under wraps as long as they possibly can. And most people are not going to take the initiative to try to go spend the hours they would need to doing the research and figuring all this out. So I just thought, we need all hands on deck. We need as many people as possible spreading this information because, there's a huge counter effort, I guess. And we have more power and more of a voice than we think, and that we've ever had in history. So it's pretty exciting to, for now, be able to speak somewhat freely on the internet. We'll take advantage of it while we still can. But
Absolutely. Yeah, there's more of us meat eaters, right? And I think we still have a lot of work to do, even though sometimes these things seem obvious to us. I know it feels like we have to repeat ourselves over and over again, but
Yeah,
this is the
You
way.
do. The only way to
That's-
get that across is just to beat it into people.
Yeah,
yeah. At some point, we'll hopefully reach critical mass where there's like, this is it. It's
Starting
it's
to
done.
see, though, I mean, shockingly, that I posted on my story, somebody sent me, they were typing into YouTube, veganism is, and then it was showing them the suggested searches, and it was all negative. It was like, veganism is dead, veganism is this and that. The video that was released by Shannon, I believe was her name.
Oh yeah, that went pretty viral.
Yeah, where she's talking about veganism as a scam. That was great. That really, I think, was like, a video that a lot of people saw that got people more interested in this topic again. But it was really great to see all like the majority of searches about veganism. One was veganism as a cult. So, word travels fast, and the internet is such a powerful thing. So I'm definitely excited to see where things go from here. There was such a exponential increase in my count from year 1 to year 2. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing what happens once the YouTube and all that gets going, because that's just going to be like a whole new chapter.
Yeah.
Nice. I like the optimism. I like it.
It's, well, gotta be optimistic, because otherwise it would just be terrifying. So
Yeah.
see what
Yeah.
happens.
I'm gonna finish reading the comments. So suffering sucks. Says, has a death ever happened to an infant that was not vegan? I mean, I think,
Yes, obviously.
yeah, like obviously,
Yeah.
You
this was
vegan?
back when
Sounds like
yeah.
something I would ask.
It says, it definitely is concerning.
Over again, we can never say one way or the other what caused this child to die, because nobody knows. But
Yeah.
to not acknowledge the child ever existed and keep preaching veganism, that's my problem. I'm not saying no child has
Strange.
ever died.
Yeah, suspicious.
Clears it up for you.
Yeah.
All right.
They
Well,
say, I heard about that from another vegan durian writer.
during
They said, do you follow Simon Hill from The Proof? He seems to make a case for healthy veganism. If done right, he seems to be science-based.
No, he's not, and he blocked me, even though I've never had any interaction with him. That should tell you a little bit about Simon.
Really?
He's-
Oh my God.
Preemptive blocking.
Yeah, he's a
Wow.
coward. Makes the most asinine arguments in favor of plant-based eating that I've ever seen, and he probably blocks anybody that he knows is like smart enough to call him out on it. So
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry.
Keep the echo chamber going.
Wow. Wow. Kelsey is so notorious that she is preemptively blocked.
Yeah, that tells you you're on the
I'm
right
not-
track.
I'm like still a very small niche account that hardly anybody outside of this community knows about. So if somebody like PETA blocked me right off the bat when I was so small, I had like 2. They blocked me again, no interaction at all. They want to shut down the argument before it even gets started. They don't want to get caught looking like they are wrong. So yeah, like Simon, there's some other ones like similar to him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
call themselves science-based.
They
You know,
don't.
science. They're still hanging on to LDL being bad.
There just is no. There just is no good argument in favor of plant-based eating. That's like what I've been posting about for the last 2 years. Every argument they have, everything they're trying to achieve can be better achieved through regenerative agriculture. And
Yeah.
I don't think that everybody needs to eat like an 80 or 90% meat diet. People can eat a more balanced 50-50 ratio, in my opinion, as long as they're eating the right things. And as long as they're meeting their nutrient requirements, they can be fine. So if you want to consider that plant-based eating or a more plant-heavy diet where it's not like a carnivore diet or a meat-based diet, like I think that we have evidence from our indigenous ancestors that type of diet can be done in a way that's healthy. But none of them were vegan. None of them were even vegetarian, I don't think. So this is a new concept that people are trying to push because they have misguided beliefs about it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Even if you were lacto-ovo vegetarian, I think that can get you very far. Adding eggs and
Eggs and milk.
And then again, with the plants, there's more issues to plant foods today than just anti-nutrients, right? Like, I mean, if you're getting like perked up toy looking fruits at the supermarket, that's very different from like getting like high quality, like properly grown fruits and vegetables.
The soil quality, those are huge things there. But I also try to be realistic and I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like I base things on our ancestors, on the research rice and the varied diet that was eaten around the globe, and I think that lends itself to evidence that we can eat some plant foods and be healthy. But the plant foods, like you said, that are in the grocery store and the way that we're eating them now is very different to what we were doing before.
Yeah, they were eating like the high quality stuff, the good stuff. Um,
You're trying to pitch fruit and vegetables to us in a nice way, and I appreciate it. But I mean, we're
Out here to convert any carnivores. Just we have a common goal, so we gotta focus on that.
absolutely.
yeah.
Constantly I'm being accused of trying to tell people how to eat, and that's the one thing I don't do on my page. Like everybody else is selling some kind of diet on their page, and I'm not telling people how to eat. I'm just telling them that you're human, and humans don't do well on a diet that's not meant for humans. Like we're not herbivores.
Correct.
Some vegans want to make the argument that we are, but that would be a good in-depth YouTube video that I'd like to make about just all the physical reasons we're not herbivores. But again, obvious, right? We like, if we were herbivores, we wouldn't need to supplement B12.
Yeah.
Yeah. B12, essential amino acids found in one food versus like a dozen foods. I mean, yeah.
B12 is just the iceberg. It's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stick of butter every day says good work, team. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. And then Suffering Sucks asked, were you guys vegans in the past? Us, no. Kelsey was. You can check out the start of this episode if you want to hear about her story. I guess you joined later in the show. That's okay. But I know we're running long.
Yeah, 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you hanging out with us. And, this conversation has been great. Like there's just so many different things to touch. It's kind of hard to like stay on track, but that's okay. But it's just, we covered a lot in this time. And, I still feel like we could go on forever just discussing like all these different aspects of like just veganism and health and eating meat and what is an ethical moral way of eating, right? Like I think many people are concerned with that question, but I love that you said that you don't save an animal by not eating animals, because I think as ethical meat eaters we have to come to the realization that we should do away with focusing on the quantity of animal lives lost for our food. Like I think that's like the wrong hill to die on, or like the wrong. I mean, you could argue it's
Wrong.
important, but like it's just there's a bigger context in which we have to place our consumption as meat eaters, or just as food eaters in general, and that is like the methods in which our food is being made, right? What is the consequence of the food production when you're looking at things like the environment and the soil? And what is really great about this conversation is all roads lead to regenerative agriculture being the answer, because what is good for the soil is good for the animals, is good for the farmers, it's good for the economy, it's good for you, the consumer, too.
Human health.
Yeah, it's good for the human health, it's good for the planet, and that's really, everything aligns perfectly once you frame it in that way, and it just makes perfect sense. To say otherwise is delusion.
It's literally the system we relied on for our entire existence, but now you position
Exactly.
this is the solution, and it's, oh no, that's impossible, we can never do that. And I am a realist. I don't deny that it is a very large task to take on, and it's going to take a lot to get towards that system. But my counter to that would be like, veganism is 10, if not 100 times more impossible. Getting everybody on board with veganism, and even if you were able to, like, you never would, but if you're going to force everybody to get on board with veganism, as we already mentioned, you save 0 animals, you destroy the soil, like you now have an unsustainable system because you have no way to fertilize your crops. Vegans love to shit on regenerative agriculture and say that won't work, we don't have enough land, blah blah blah, the cost. But it's all of their criticisms of regenerative agriculture are just multiplied by 100 if you suggest veganism as the solution. So it'll never work. Their plan will never ever work. Even if we can get to like 50% regenerative farming, then that would be a major improvement over the current system, way beyond anything that veganism could ever achieve. So I think when you have the responses to these things that vegans say, then you very quickly will learn whether that's a rational person or not. Because a rational person, once they've been presented with these points, which are good counterpoints to their arguments, they will go, huh, no one's ever really put it that way before. Like, I got to kind of go back to the drawing board and think about this a little bit more. The vegan that's just like, no, you're a murderer. Like, you'll really quickly figure out whether that conversation is even worth continuing.
Yeah.
And I can figure that out really quickly with vegans. And when I know they're not worth talking to, I know they'll probably make some funny content that I can screenshot and put on my story and just show people, this is what I'm dealing with here, and it gets a laugh, but it also serves a purpose. Well, this is what a willfully ignorant, closed-minded person looks like. This is not a person who loves animals and wants to save the world and all the things that they sell their movement as being. It's none of those things.
None of those things. Zero.
Yeah, just an illusion.
Yeah, smoke and mirrors.
But yeah, I guess that's a good place to end it. Why don't you tell us, because you mentioned this across the whole episode, what's next for No Reason to Be Vegan?
YouTube and the podcast. So I know this is a long time coming, but
Yeah,
it's something I'm really excited to finally do. And, I do all this on the side of my regular life. And so I'd love to have like all the time in the world to do it, but I also have to balance and manage my other responsibilities. Posting and like just posting the type of content that I've been sharing, I've got that stuff like stacked up. So it's really easy to push that type of content out for me. The issue for me has been getting over the hurdle of like the learning curve of how to set up a podcast, how to set up YouTube videos, doing the editing, all of the shit that you guys have had to research and learn how to do to set this up. Like, I'm just kind of in that place right now, and
yeah,
it's not fun for me to research those things and learn those things. I think that's why it's taking so long, but I've got all the content's like ready to go. All the stuff in my highlights, I want to do kind of a topic video on each one of those things. So it's like all I have to do is just shoot it and edit it and put it up. So I'm really hoping to get a video out by the end of January. That's the goal I'm setting for myself.
Nice. There you go.
yeah. Just start with one video, and then I guess it'll get easier from there on.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot of effort, just like figuring all of this stuff out. We're still trying to figure stuff out. Still a work in progress, but
Well, you
but,
guys are doing
yeah,
program is blowing up. So, I mean, it's got to feel good to know that like you're getting some traction with it.
yeah. Thank you. You too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
I love your page. I absolutely love the content. I always try to share it as much as I can.
Thank you. I like
And
that.
yeah, where can people find you? I guess.
No Reason to Be Vegan, and I've got some links in my bio with like this hunting podcast. I was on the Western Huntsman podcast last week. There's a few other links to like a little Reddit page that I barely post on anymore. Like there's a couple other little social media platforms I've set up, like a Telegram, in case I ever get deleted. So I'll kind of have other ways to contact people. But yeah, so the podcast will be on Apple, Spotify, just like the typical.
Yeah, you're on Twitter as well.
I do have a Twitter, yeah.
Mhm.
Like I definitely am most consistently posting on Instagram, but I try to remember to share the links on these other sites.
Yeah.
Those are kind of half-assed, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I pretty much respond to all my DMs on Instagram. So if you are watching and want to ask me anything or tell me I suck, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, definitely go follow No Reason to Be Vegan. No reason. And then that's 2 as the number, B, just the letter, vegan. To be vegan. I hope
That's
that
it.
makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, definitely go follow Kelsey. And then, you know, Twitter's a fun place. I've been on Twitter more lately, and it's a wild place. Like, I think you would have a lot of fun there. Yeah, so
Uh,
I definitely recommend that you share the same posts, just the same pictures,
yeah, I need to
whatever.
get. I find that it's easier to grow an Instagram than a Twitter account, but I
Yeah,
haven't put a lot of consistent effort into a Twitter. I just know that I would get so wrapped up into these arguments with people on Twitter years ago before I started this Instagram, this no
yeah,
reason to be. And now I would like blink and then my whole day would be gone because I'd just be going back and forth with these people nonstop. So I've had to like be mindful of not being like that anymore. But I do think that now that Twitter has different ownership, the conversation is probably much different than it was. So I'm curious to test the waters on that.
yeah. There's a lot of base people on Twitter that are not on Instagram. Um, it's a fun place. Yeah,
I would love to check this out.
yeah. But cool. All right.
Well, thank you. This was fun. We should do it again. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we'd love
so
to have you as a. Sorry, what did you say?
this will be on your channel. It'll stay up on your channel, right?
Yeah. So it's gonna be on YouTube, and then we'll try to clip it up and try to blast this through Instagram. Hopefully, blow it up. You know, these topics of veganism are always gonna be controversial. So who knows? Maybe we'll unleash a shitstorm down the road. I would love it. I would definitely love to have you back. I think, you know, this is an ongoing topic, and there's just so many different things to cover. You know, and if you're ever down, you know, come back on the episode on the show, and you know, just cover different topics. And I think the there's a lot of great stuff that we can do together, right, down the road. I'm excited for this year because we're definitely planning on amping up our signals on the interwebs in
Yeah.
favor of meat.
Maybe I can get a vegan to come on and chat with us.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Yeah, we've thought about that too. Yeah,
Like they will agree to, and like that day rolls around and then they disappear.
just no
But
show.
I'm working on it, and the one I was talking to before this was actually trying to call me through Instagram. Like it's like, let's talk right now, and I'm like,
Oh my god.
yeah, let's plan it. You probably won't show up, but we'll put it on the calendar. So I
Yeah.
may have, but I'm always looking for recruits. So
On that topic, have you reached out to the Nutrivore?
oh God, no.
No.
He went on Food Lies or like talked to Brian Sanders.
Oh, he
I
did.
don't listen to that. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet.
No.
I don't particularly. That's not a high priority for me. I find his personality to be extremely off-putting, and
Yeah, he's an awful person.
yeah, and I think he does enough to discredit himself without me even having to really do much other than like show a photo of what he looks like and the ridiculous things. He kind of like, I don't know. It's like, is this real or is this you trolling? Like the arguments that he makes are actually so stupid. They're like, but he positions it and uses jargon and terminology and vocabulary to try to make himself sound like he's very smart. And that he totally like clouds what he's actually saying, so people can't understand what his argument actually is. But when you cut through all the bullshit, like verbose language, and just, I hate when people do that. It is such a sign that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. If you can't just put your argument into layman's terms and you have to hide it behind a whole bunch of words that people don't know the definition of, your argument is probably crap, and that's why you're convoluting it so much. His argument with Chris Masterjohn, they did a debate on Twitter, and that's basically what I'm talking about. When you actually get down to the brass tacks of what his argument is, it is just laughable. So I don't know how anybody in that field can take him seriously. I know I'm not the most polished speaker and the most academic person when it comes to this stuff, but I'm smart and I can see through a bad argument, and his arguments are terrible. So, I just haven't found him to be worthy of a lot of time discrediting him, because that I think most people can just like look at him versus people on the other side of the argument who are like, yeah, seed oils are actually bad for you, and like drinking Coke and eating M&Ms and eating Beyond Burgers does have negative health consequences. For somebody to try to sit there and argue against that and try to position themselves as being a really educated and like academically inclined person, how do you take that seriously? I just so he's just kind of a joke to me, I guess.
Yeah, he's
Bart,
just obnoxious.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said Bart K already spanked him, so I feel like he can do it better than Bart. I don't even need to try.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. So he debated Chris Masterjohn on like a video, or was it just like a Twitter back and forth?
Debate on Twitter. You can probably just Google like Nutrivore Chris Masterjohn Twitter debate or something and find it. I couldn't really get through that much of it because I was either like laughing hysterically or just going, what the fuck? And like, just, it's such a frustrating thing to listen to because Chris is very diplomatic and is like, being polite and answering in professional. I don't think I could do that. Like, I would have just been like howling at this guy because things that he's saying are just so absurd. And then Chris is like trying to respond to it in like an equally serious and professional way, but it's just listen to it. You'll see what I mean. The argument he's making absolutely makes no sense. So you can't even really properly respond to it. I think that's really common in this is why I can't stand academics and doctors and elitist people in these professions, because they all kind of do this. They want to separate themselves from the lay people and put themselves on this pedestal and talk in this way. But then like once you break down what they're saying and look at the evidence that's behind it, you're like, how did you get this job again? Like, doesn't make sense. But anyways, I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. Love it.
But we just, you can go forever on these topics. So we will do it.
Yeah, and that's why we like this format. It's just like unstructured. I think there's too many people out there taking themselves too seriously. Like you were just mentioning, like, sometimes you can't have like an academic, like, like fully, tied up like conversation. Like sometimes you just need to have a conversation, right? And I think people actually crave that.
Why would you want to put information out there that like only this little elite group of your colleagues can understand. When it's something
Yeah.
as significant and important as human health and nutrition, just something that we all can understand, and then they really overcomplicate these things needlessly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's just intellectual masturbation.
exactly, that's the perfect term for it. Love that.
Yeah. All right, Kelsey.
A group
You know,
effort, though.
yeah, we'll let you get back to it.
Yeah, 2 hours and 39 minutes,
Yeah.
240, basically.
You're in Houston, right?
Yeah.
Houston. So I think that's 1 hour behind us. Cool. How's the weather over there? I keep making the conversation.
Yeah, you keep extending it, but that's cool, man.
We got 2 weeks of winter, and now it's back to being 80 degrees during the day. So good old Texas.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm sure that sounds nice, but like when you don't get cold weather ever, you do miss it. I would have liked to get just a little bit more cold, but that's okay. And Boston, are you guys in the snow
Yeah.
or what?
Yeah, it's been snowing, it's been dark gray, there's no sun. You can't even tell if it's daylight over the past what, 5 days or something, except today. Today the sun was out.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's
Gotta go deep.
pretty cold.
Get your tan in the snow, and you can kill cold exposure near vitamin D.
Yeah, every day is basically constant cold exposure. So I think we're biohacking very effectively right now.
Gonna
There
live
you go.
forever.
Yeah.
All right,
I
guys.
have to set out the fireplace. Yeah.
Stay warm, I guess. And
Yeah.
thank you so much. I can't wait to come back on. I'm sure we'll have lots more to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait to see what you have planned for the YouTube channel. It's gonna be great, I'm sure. And it might just take off, So, best of luck.
Yeah.
That's both the best and worst thing that could possibly happen to me, but I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Good. Because I know you've probably been thinking about it for a very, very long time. So I think you should just go all in.
Thought whether or not I wanted to reveal myself, what the consequences of that might be. I do think there's a lot of negatives, but I feel obligated to do it, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Jay. And did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah. He's Jay. I'm Anderson. So someone says, I came in like 10 minutes ago. Will the recording be somewhere? Yes, you can find the recording. It's going to be right here on YouTube forever.
Forever. It's been marked forever in the digital library.
Yep.
For now.
Yeah. That being said, happy Tuesday night. Eat meat.
Thank you. I will talk to you later.
Yeah. We'll stay in touch. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hit broadcast.